Hey YouTube, this is David, back again with another rambling audio slash video slash rambling thoughts slash whatever. As you can see from the title, I hope to be talking about the Star Wars prequel, that's before, prequel trilogy in this video. I'll try not to go on for too long, but just get my thoughts out and not ramble too much, even though I know I will in the end, even after I've just said that, because that's just what always happens to me. I need to say first off that I have a special place in my heart. Not that I believe in the Force and all this stuff, even though I almost did as a kid. That's how into it I got. The original Star Wars trilogy. The classic charm that it has, even now, in the minds of so many. Some people, for instance, of all the YouTube ranters and movie reviewers that I like, you might know of Rambo Rap for Life, how the thing that's elevated in with him above, a little bit above everything else that he might like, is the Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and how upset that he's gotten over this remake and how horrible he thinks this new movie looks. And then there's OCP Communications. You can tell from his name that RoboCop is his main thing. Of all the things that he might like to talk about, that's the thing that has that extra special place, in his heart. Well, for me, like a lot of people, but the thing that's, I have to say, that I like the best of all the genres and the little franchises and all of the stuff, since some people love Transformers, Ninja Turtles, RoboCop, Power Rangers, different movie stuff, the Rambo movies, Terminator movies, of everything that's out there, Indiana Jones, anything and everything you might think of. And that's just scratching the surface. I know there's lots and lots more stuff. This is just some of the more popular whatnot, X-Men, Spider-Man, blah blah blah, comic book movies, yada yada yada. My thing that I have that has that extra special place in my heart, as far as the made-up stories of the recent past, my favorite genre, not genre, but my favorite thing is Star Wars. And not just Star Wars, no. I'm just going to go ahead and say the original trilogy, episodes 4, 5, and 6. That's Star Wars: A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Those are the three films as part of, and again, that's not even the whole thing. I almost disregard a lot of the Star Wars stuff these days. It seems like it's been one sellout after another, and now they actually have World of Warcraft type games. What is it, Star Wars, the Old Republic, these online multiplayer games, and all of the stuff that's come out with the prequel trilogy. But the thing that I hold dearest of all, and again, not just Star Wars, but the original films from the late 70s through mid-80s, episodes 4, 5, and 6, with Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford as Han Solo, Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. The old films. Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian, and on the list goes. Just those three films. Those are the things that have that closest place to my heart as far as these franchises go. And I have to go ahead and say that I would love to make this the last of these kind of videos that I do where I just use the audio, even though I know that's not going to be the case. But I would like to make it, if I possibly can, the last of the movie review, even though that might not happen either, because it's just so convenient to do it this way until I get a good camera and replace this horrible web camera that I've got. But I'd like to go ahead and say there's a series that I'd like to start, and I guess I'll go ahead and just call it Conversations with Myself, where I don't so much talk about movies, any particular movie, but maybe several movies, and basically it'll be a themed type talk that I'll end up giving, and I have the first idea, and basically what's going to start it all has to do with the dark imagery that we're seeing in movies from characters that are historically and traditionally meant to be sources of light to us. And of course, I'm thinking first and foremost of the new Man of Steel movie, but there are several other things that I'm going to end up talking about when I finally sit down and make that video. But let me get into this. The Star Wars prequel trilogy, and the reason why I go ahead and announce that Conversations with Myself video series in this little video is because it's really the heartbreak that has come along as a result of all this stuff, really starting maybe with the popularization of prequels by the Star Wars prequels, episodes 1, 2, 3, that I look forward to so much in my mid to late teens. And yet, looking back, it's like, it's just kind of there, and there was really nothing all that special about it. But I'll get into the particulars of that as I go along in this video. It's just, there's a cheapening that I'm seeing of the art in media, particularly in movies, but in everything else in our culture, in our society, but mainly for the things that I talk about as far as movies, how money seems to be the be-all and end-all, and not artistic merit, and not things that enrich the soul, which again, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the soul. I mentioned the soul because I'm a Christian. I obviously believe everybody has a soul, and that if you make something that isn't necessarily some thing that someone will get use out of, but is purely a piece of art, whether it be a song, a poem, a movie, anything, a book, how it needs to help build you up and change you for the better, enrich you in some way. And yet, so much of the junk that's made seems to be just, well, not hacking it, not really doing that, at least not for me. I look at a lot of these comic book movies that have been coming out, and there's this old archetype, this old story of good versus evil that can surely be brought across in a lot of these things that are coming out. Spider-Man, Captain America. I haven't seen X-Men Days of Future Past yet. I'm looking forward to seeing that, but the good versus evil thing, how it's like it's there, and yet because it is part of this made up thing, it's the depth of it can only go so far when you're talking about people with extraordinary abilities. And I'm not saying necessarily that it's realistic things that I'm trying to focus on, heroism and wars, actual wars or real life events, but more of a, since that's something else that I personally, even though that can certainly be done in those kind of movies, that kind of worth that I'm talking about, the thing is that I guess I'm mainly just speaking to my own opinions, and that I'm kind of burnt out on that kind of stuff too, as far as just war movies go, because again, there always seems to be a kind of a slant in war movies that end up glorifying the war itself, which I really despise that idea. I don't think that needs to be done. Even though there are films, like for instance, I like Saving Private Ryan and so forth. Black Hawk Down, I think I've said before, is a film that it has this brutality to it, that the way the storytelling goes in that film, well, not really storytelling, but the telling of the story of what actually happened, that film, the way it was done, can confuse and depress. And so I actually kind of like that as a war film, that honesty to it. And yet, that's not something that I want to be elevating, that kind of film, as far as something that I could point general audiences to and say, hey, this is good, this will be good for you, go and check this out. No, it's just too extreme films like that. Even though I do like it, as far as grown-ups who might want to check out some war movie among war movies. But I didn't even mean to get off onto all this stuff. But it's just, hopefully you'll understand what I mean when I say that it's just, it seems like we're really losing something, and that, well, it's kind of been going on for a good long while, but that now it seems to me that that worth that was once there is almost totally gone. For instance, getting into the prequel trilogy, I'm forced, really, by my mind to talk about George Lucas just for a little bit. I've never really looked into his life at all. Not that that's all that important. It's just rumor and hearsay as far as what I hear about how he is, his personality and stuff. All I ever knew was that he was the creator of Star Wars. So I immediately, growing up, whenever I would hear George Lucas's name or see Lucasfilm on the side of a movie box cover, I would say, hey, I like that guy. And yet you really find out something, and no, this is not a bash George Lucas video. No, this is just a side note, for instance, of how you really see the artistic vision of someone when they go and do something like what he did. And ultimately the lack of artistic vision, because, and again, this is not a bash, I'm not trying to bash George Lucas here, I'm only saying that I love those first three films, episode 4, 5, and 6. Even though, as I got older and started paying more attention to details and actually looked into things, I find out that he didn't direct Empire Strikes Back or Jedi, I don't believe. And yet he's the creator of Star Wars, and he wrote so much of it. It was his space saga. And so, that's important. It's just the fact that he was able to make these films, and he was, we'll go ahead and say, the be-all and end-all as far as say-so of what happened. It's just, I'm not going to say shocking, but it's just worrisome to me what he did to Star Wars, in that the first three films, I say the first three that were made, but they're actually the middle story in this space saga. I say middle because it's ongoing, with a new Star Wars film being made by J.J. Abrams and coming out at the end of next year, episode 7. In that George Lucas made such good films, or had them made, and then in this artistic way of saying what happened before the things that all these people love, including myself, the fallen father who you find out is Luke Skywalker's father, and then how he redeems him, to go and tell this dark story about how this person fell and became this awful villain. It's like, okay, that could be something neat. Just like I've praised Aliens 3 for being an interesting idea, and yet the way it was done is terrible. I've said in my thoughts about Prometheus and Aliens in that video how I really like Aliens 3, just not as an Aliens movie. I hate it as an Aliens movie because of the emotional connection that I had in loving those characters and feeling like they were people that I knew, because this is how movies work with me. I saw them, not in real life, but I saw them on screen. I observed them, and I liked what I saw. The friendship, the heroism, the caring for each other, their fight against evil, as it were, evil forces. And yet, the prequel trilogy really didn't have any of that. It was way too artsy, I guess. To start, for instance, let's get into the films. Episode 1, using a little boy as Anakin Skywalker, instead of go ahead and starting him off telling the story from the age vantage point of however old Hayden Christensen was supposed to be in episode 2. Instead of starting somewhere in there, they used a little boy. And again, I was so hyped up, and yes, I'm someone who I give in to hype from time to time. And for instance, I gave in to hype at first with Dark Knight Rises. I gave in to hype with Prometheus for a good long while, and I still like that film. It's just the sequel better be really, really good, and that's all I can say about that. Episode 1 was something that, as a kid, when I was 16, 17 years old, going to see this at the theater, how it's like, oh, it's Star Wars, new Star Wars films. Oh, this is going to be great. I thought nothing of it, the little kid. I knew, well, in the next movie, and then the next movie that they're going to make, obviously he's going to be older, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he's changed. But it's like, looking back, the way everybody and his brother says the story should have been told now. Of course, hindsight is always 20/20, as they say, but that's just scratching the surface. That's just a symptom of the overall problem, because the next two movies really didn't convey. Well, episode 3 began to in the most serious way of any of the films, but even then it was almost like it was too little too late, because I'm speaking mainly to the emotional impact that the characters convey. If the directors and producers, they get out of those actors and actresses what they need to tell this story, and it's like it just wasn't happening. Not that everybody was wooden faced, but it's like, and somebody even might say, well, you know what, the original Star Wars films are kind of campy, and maybe the acting wasn't the best in the world, and yet there was still that something, and it's undeniable. It's undeniable. And I've got to go ahead and steal one from a spill I heard Zara Nizarak give on when he was talking about this. I'm going to go ahead and say what he said. Maybe not word for word, but credit to Zara Nizarak for articulating it as well as he did. How, for instance, in Star Wars A New Hope, you see Harrison Ford's Han Solo taking a liking to the princess, and all throughout the second film, after they've rescued her and all this, and in the first film, this constant thing of, you know, you love me, you love me, you love me, you won't admit it, but you love me. But she won't admit that she loves him. And all through their adventure in the second film, she won't admit it until the very end, when they've been captured and Han Solo is going to be put into carbonite. All of a sudden, right before they do what they're going to do to him, the Empire, and who knows if Han's going to live, maybe this is going to kill him. That's nothing to them. They're evil, they don't care, they're cruel, they're ripping lives apart potentially by doing this, but they're the villains. This is what they do. All of a sudden, right before they're going to do it, right before they're going to put him on ice or in carbonite, she has this emotive thing. She runs away from from Chewie, or tries to, or from the Imperial Stormtrooper, and she yells out, "I love you." And then there's Han saying, I know you love me." And it's kind of a weird thing how much I like that about the trilogy now, because I remember long ago when I was just a kid, I think I was watching our 5-minute version, as I call it. It was a takedown off the TV version of Return of the Jedi, which was all I had when I was a little kid. I didn't even know it was part of a trilogy. It was all messed up on the video cassette, VHS tape. It was scratchy here and there, or looked at, it was fuzzy in places, and it was only like 45 minutes of the movie, basically. Some of it was actually chopped down, but you just had enough of it to see some of the action, and for a little kid to be wowed and know that they like what they're seeing, a little boy anyway, maybe not a little girl, but to be like, wow, this is neat. How there's that part in the third film where they're backed up into that bunker. They don't know it's Chewie that's right before that's happened. Imperial troopers are on him, and Han's got his back to him. Maybe they've had it. He had been checking on Leia because she had been shot by a laser, and she shows him that she's got a gun, and so they can't get the drop on the stormtroopers. And he's all like, "I love you," and she says, "I know." And then he turns his back real quick, and she's able to shoot the stormtroopers. And how my mom said, if someone says something, she said something like, "That's not right. Like, if he says she loves him, then he should say he loves her. If he says he loves her, then she should say she loves him." But the truth is, I knew what my mom was saying back then, but it's like, I do like that anyway, the way that is, the way it was written in the original trilogy, that charm that it had, because the original movies had that lovely charm that the prequel trilogies, forgive me if I'm stepping on anybody's toes, I don't mean to offend anybody who might really like the newer films, which I know a lot of people do. There are things about it that I do like. Some of the action, some of the things. I don't hate Jar Jar Binks with a passion the way a lot of people do. But really, that's not really what I'm getting at as far as this worth that I'm talking about that is in the older films, that's not in the prequel trilogy, in my opinion. Just in my opinion. So, just one more time, and I'll try and end my thoughts on the original trilogy and particulars about it, just saying that, because it's one of those things that's so dear to my heart that I will not be doing reviews. I won't be doing any reviews on the original trilogy. This is meant to be about the prequel trilogy, but as I go, I guess I am going to talk a little bit about the original film. But it's just, when I say a special place in my heart, I really mean a special place in my heart. Episode 4, 5, and 6 have. And fear for the future, or worry at any rate, in as much as life goes on. There's more money to be made, so they're making new Star Wars films. And given the poor track record of the Star Wars franchise now in terms of the big movies, it's like, I want to love the stuff that they're making, and that's going to start coming out next year, and yet I'm scared to death. Like, oh man, it's going to be horrible. Are they really going to have the old cast with their old selves now in there? They're talking about killing off Han Solo and all this insanity. It's not going to ruin things for me. I won't let it. But it's like, you can't help but feel kind of cheated when these things are happening. Again and again and again, it seems. People love Transformers, and then they did things with Transformers in the movies, and it's like, what is this? RoboCop, totally unnecessary. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who knows what in the world this film is going to be. Jurassic Park. I'm looking forward to Jurassic World because, really, at least just in my opinion, that's a franchise where it's open to new ideas. I mean, for crying out loud, it's based off of the theorized possibility of cloning dinosaurs from the DNA of spiders trapped in amber nectar. So, give me a break. It's science fiction. So I'm looking forward to that anyway. And so, just to try and keep on with the prequel trilogies, it was one of those films that I watched over and over and over again. The original, and then coming in second would be episode 2 in terms of how many times I watched it on DVD, because they didn't release episode 1 on DVD right away. It took a good long while for them to finally do that. Episode 3, least of all. And it would be, as far as how many times I watched it, just because I was going off to the Air Force by then. Playtime is over, basically. You just can't do things like when you were a kid. Even though you still watch the films, it's not exactly the same, and you know what I mean. It's just that first film, I watched it so many times, over and over and over again, trying to get into it, and it was just the fact that it was Star Wars, and there were lightsaber battles, and space fights, and starfighters, and all this stuff. It's like, it was cool to me. And yet, examining the way people do their storytelling now, I'm at a loss as to how to justify it. And as much as this is all about, well, then again, I'm talking like somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, when maybe I don't, because this, in the words of George Lucas, this is my work. This is what I want to do with this. When he was giving everybody a hard time about not releasing the original trilogy with the original special effects prior to the special edition thing, how he said, this is how I wanted it seen, and so this is all that's going to be. And everybody and his brother is freaking out like, we made you the billionaire that you are, give us what we want. And I think they've finally done that, or they're finally going to do it. Just the original films prior to the special edition of 1997, I think it was, which I actually saw that, all 3 movies in the theater. I went and I rewatched all 3 movies just for the sake of seeing Star Wars on the big screen, the original trilogy, even though it wasn't really the original trilogy. It was the special edition with the snow monster that you see this time. And thinking about it now, it really isn't that impressive. It was even better when you didn't see him in Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. The big clam thing coming out of the Sarlacc pit. It really is better to me when they didn't have anything like that, when it was just this living organism, this gut, this prickly, spikily mouthed gut out in the desert somewhere. That to me, I think I like that even better than this thing that can actually reach up and grab you. I mean, it still had tentacles. But anyway, the whole thing with the sonic boom, whatever that thing is, the ring around the Death Stars when they explode, take it or leave it. I'm either way about that. It was classic. The stop motion, the Muppets, all the stuff, what he did, what they did, what Star Wars did in those original films. And yeah, I am kind of encouraged to hear that J.J. Abrams, even though I think he's destroyed Star Trek, the more I think about these new films, how it's just a retelling, an alternate timeline. That's as cheap as it gets. It really is lazy. I'm sorry. And I don't mean to rant on these things too much, but it's all part of ranting on the prequel trilogies. It really is, because it really was the prequel trilogies, Star Wars, that got this stuff started. It really was. How we can now get away with, or movie makers can now get away with, just alternate timelines. Same characters, just rewritten, younger. It's like, give me a break. That's as cheap as can be. And the new Star Trek films really are just, it's a lot of action. There's been some tear-jerking moments for sure, but a good action film can still do that. But Star Trek was never really action. It was about thought-provoking science fiction. It was about, well, not necessarily philosophy, but it was about thought. It really was. My sister had rented some stuff from the library. We don't have cable or satellite right now where we live, but I remember 2 or 3 years ago, or whenever it was, she rented some DVDs from the library. It was old Star Trek episodes, and to hear some of the dialogue in one of those episodes from, I don't know if it was 70s, 80s, whenever, William Shatner as Captain Kirk. On some planet, some guy was all of a sudden he was empowered with ultra intelligence and ultra power, and he was talking about, you can't control it. And I'm not doing justice nearly well enough to what was said, but I was just thinking, I wasn't watching the episode, she was. I was just happened to be in the same room doing something, and I was just thinking, this is some good junk. This dialogue is gold. It makes you think. This is just Star Trek. These new films are not doing that to me. It's just not there. But again, this is about Star Wars, not Star Trek. It's just I mentioned J.J. Abrams, and so I had to mention that. It is encouraging that he's going to be doing some practical effects with the Muppets, I heard, but it's still him. But at least it's not an alternate timeline. It is something in the future. Who knows? It really could go either way as far as whether or not they'll be good films. But again, as far as what has that special place in my heart, and really, the more I think about it, it is tied up with the artists themselves, with what George Lucas did at that time, and it just goes to show that maybe, for instance, this is just think of the word artist just for a second, how, and the concept of an artist, a person, how one artist can present something to you that you absolutely love, and you think because of the brilliance of it that everything that he or she might do will be great, and yet no. And George Lucas, and again, I'm not bashing him here. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to say anything bad about him at all. It's just a basic observation that is true. How when he was able to have all the special effects capability to do things in a different way, that's all he really wanted, it seemed, to do. Because let's face it, and it's not just the old thing about how, well, episode 4, 5, and 6 is later on in the future, and yet the technology of episode 1, 2, 3 seems to be way better. More ships, more capability, more holograms, all this stuff. It's not just that. I'm thinking in terms of that classic charm that the original trilogy has, because he was limited. And so it just goes to show that sometimes it's the limitations. If there's a passion there, and yet there are certain limitations in certain places, that yes, that work can be even better than if they had all the materials and all the resources and all the money and all the capability to do what they really have in their mind, that you might not like as much. So, yeah, this could turn into, you could easily just study George Lucas and Lucasfilm and people surrounding him as a prime example of what I'm talking about. Because that passion for storytelling, it just didn't seem to be there in the way that it was in the original trilogy. And when I say that, I mean that the storytelling was there, in as much as there seemed to be just a bunch of people mouthing things, dialogue, exposition, when in the original film it was people doing things. It's like they were really on this adventure, and there was just a camera right there nearby them and recorded it. Like they just put you into their world. And the whole thing, especially in the first two, episode 1 and 2 of the prequel trilogy, just seemed like one big conference call with talking and midi-chlorians. Are you kidding me? When I was a kid, I didn't like that idea. I'm like, wait. You're trying to scientificalize it now. You're trying to... Please don't do that. But they did that. They live inside me. Yes, inside yourselves. Yes. I'm like... I don't need Bill Nye in my Star Wars movie, okay? The Force was something that wasn't seen before. And yet it was seen. Get it? I saw Yoda move Luke's starfighter, the X-Wing starfighter, out of that swamp. When he had given up, saying, "It is impossible," he says, "I don't believe it. That is why you fail." That was great. The newer stuff, episode 1, 2, 3, ugh. And it's all about the fall of someone who doesn't really seem to fall until the third film, The Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. Especially the more I think about it, not just for the sake of this video, but the way things kind of come out of me, as I'm having to articulate these thoughts, it really becomes clear to me now that, yeah, even though I like some things about the original trilogy, even the second film, which everybody hates, I like the movie poster for it and everything. Then again, I like the movie poster for the third one too. It doesn't really matter. How it just... What I was trying to say a minute ago, and what I'll try and get back to saying now, is that you really felt for the characters in the original film, and you also felt for the characters in the prequel film. The difference is, you only felt for the characters, at least just speaking for myself, I only felt for the characters in the prequel films because I knew in my mind that I was supposed to. Not that I had observed anything on the screen that showed me that they actually do care about each other. Going back to what Zaron Isaac had said, and what I want to repeat here, I've already said part of it, but when he asked, where is that I love you, I know moment in the prequel trilogy? It's not there. And again, kudos to Zaron Isaac for saying that way. I really love the way he said that, because it's right on. It's just, in the second film, a temper tantrum, Anakin, his mother dying in his arms before she could get out the words, I love you, and then him killing everybody and them not showing anything because it's rated PG-13 except a couple of digitized decapitations, no blood because it's a lightsaber. And that's enough of a nightmare in itself. I'm not saying we need gore in this. No, we don't need that. It's just Hayden Christensen's acting when he gets back with Padme, back at the moisture farm, saying, they're like animals, and I kill them like animals. It's just like, I know he's upset, but it seems to be me that he has mental problems than he's someone who is sane and yet extremely enraged and passionate to the point of being out of control and maniacal, bordering on maniacal, a glimpse of the future, Vader. It seemed more like he had mental issues the way he acted that scene out. That not that Hayden Christensen had mental problems, but that the Anakin he was portraying just seemed mentally unstable, and that's the only way I can say it. He was crying, yes, of course, that's good. That part was good. But it's like the dialogue preceding it only reinforced what I just said about how I'm a Jedi. I know I'm better than this and all this stuff. It's like, that's the kind of thing that's said hours and hours later after you've really been brooding over the nightmare that you just put on a whole tribe of sand people. Not right away. We're kind of jumping the gun here. And the way she just comforts him, comforts the psycho murderer, it doesn't seem like she is her mother's daughter, Princess Leia. She was this, Carrie Fisher was this stand-up, and I'm not saying that Padme wasn't a tough female presence. No, she was a fighter. It's just, you know what I'm saying, it's about as far as the acting and the way she commanded a presence on the screen, you know? Because it wasn't just about her. What I'm talking about infected everybody on the screen. Everybody. Not lifeless, but almost just enough life to get out whatever dialogue they were supposed to say, whether it was the pilots or the servants or the security people around them in different scenes, getting on and off their spaceships, and the political whatnot, and the big council scenes, and blah, blah, blah. It seems to me, and this is the only way that I could think to say it ever, as I've thought about this in the past, is that the original trilogy was so great because you got to see, it seemed like the story being told was, it's like the people in it, the characters that you cared about because of the way they were, and the way they treated each other, and what they were up against, and all this stuff, because you cared about the people, and that's how the story was told. And yet in the first three films, the characters are second, and it's all about the events around them, and how they're just kind of swept along with the events, and you gradually see the transformation at the last minute of Anakin into Darth Vader, Obi-Wan with his also strange dialogue of, only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will do what I must. Don't make me kill you. You were supposed to defeat the Sith, not join them. After he zapped off his other arm and his legs below the knee or above the knee, whatever, and it's like, and he's on fire, and the volcano ashes, the rocks burning him up. It's so hot. It's good special effects and some dark imagery, and finally the meanness that you kind of sensed in Vader all along in the original trilogy. It was so well balanced in all those films, whereas in the third film you've got to really show that, yeah, this is the Darth Vader by having him kill kids. The balance just isn't there. Forget the Force. Just bring balance to these films so that it's at least on par with the originals, but it's not. Let me try and just bring out a few things that I like or don't like about each movie, and then try and bring this to a close. Again, I've said that I watched the episode 1 more than any of the other ones just because I was younger, I was at home more, had it on video cassette. Man, I wish I'd never gotten rid of that stuff. Don't you hate that? Have you ever done that like me, where you sold your stuff several times, whether it was games or movies or blah blah blah, just for some cash, and then the cash is gone and you don't have anything, and then you have to try and recollect your collections. It's madness. It's madness. Just don't get rid of your stuff, people. I don't do that anymore. I keep everything now. Another American pack rat who has more stuff in storage than, well, let's not get into that. Episode 1. Again, I was so wowed as a kid seeing this opening scene. The special effects blew me away, all the computerized everything, the way the ship moved and the way it looked as it went into that space hangar. And then how violent it seemed when it's like, shields, they shot up there. The Jedi's transport, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, the young Obi-Wan, played by Ewan McGregor, how they blew that thing up. I was like, whoa! And then there's the lightsaber battle against the droids, and how they have to get away. They meet up with Jar Jar Binks on the surface. And I thought, especially being the kind of person I am, I kind of liked him. I thought it was this fun, neat character. Even if he was all computerized and everything, which back then, just like everything else, I thought, well, it just looks neat. I did not see any of the stereotypes that people complained about. My mind just was not there when I was 16, 17 years old. I just didn't see it. And even now, I only kind of see it. And now, thinking about it, I'm like, well, you could easily have just had slight changes and avoided that stuff altogether. But I still don't understand what a lot of people are getting at when they say, this is picking on a whole group of people and blah, 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 blah. But you saw less and less of Jar Jar as the movies went on. Episode 2 and then episode 1, I think, 3, I think he's only in one scene. Anyways, seeing the man who played, or would be, Emperor Palpatine, that was neat, seeing him as a senator. But it would have just been neat to only see him just a little bit. All of the political stuff, that's what killed, or what is one of the main things that killed the original, the prequel trilogies. All the council stuff and the political upheaval and how we're losing liberty, and then they had to go and play on current events with, in episode 3, about how this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause. And granted, there is something in that is art mimicking real life, absolutely. It was good in that. Finally, something good in those council scenes. But it's like in the first 2 films, it's like getting the clone army up and ready to go and trying to satisfy that part of the stuff that was mentioned in episode 1 just for the sake, it seemed only for the sake of saying, hey, see how this was mentioned in episode 4? Clone army? And how Obi-Wan had fought in the Clone Wars? Well, see, here it is. That's what it seemed to me. How there was this, even though it took up so much time, it still feels like, I don't really feel like this is happening, because I don't feel it. But anyway, you see it on screen. Darth Maul, man, that was another thing that just blew me away. His fight, I mean, the way he looked, even the way he looks now. But the way he was just an assassin. How a lot of people knock him now, like, oh yeah, he was nothing compared to Dooku and Vader. Well, of course not. But still, you know as well as I do, Ray Park, all of his moves, all of his acrobatic whatnot in that last scene with Obi-Wan, it was great junk, and it still is. Getting cut in half and all this stuff, and how there was that one scene in the film. I hadn't read the novel. I hadn't even. They make comic books about everything now. I hadn't even looked at them, and to see Qui-Gon get cut down for myself, I was like, ooh! That's the one. That's one thing that really got me. I was like, oh no, he's dead. Well, he hadn't died yet, but you know, he's fallen. He's been run through. First time he ever saw anybody get run through by a lightsaber. And then the final fight, the whole thing with... Really, I'll go ahead and just say that younger, when I have my... when I might maybe pretend like I was a Jedi or something, just you know, the way you do, I would usually just fast forward a lot of that starfighter scene, because I didn't like it as much as I did the earlier movies, special effects and the space fights and the space battles. And even fast forward, well, maybe not fast forward, because I actually did like some of Jar Jar Binks' little army when he was made a general, and the Bantham whatever those aliens were called on Naboo, and the Naboo starfighters. I actually did watch some of that, but then I would just fast forward through the space stuff a lot of time, just to get to the lightsaber battle when I would watch the film over and over again. And the whole thing with the parade at the end, it's like, something about it just didn't seem like Star Wars to me. But then again, going back to what I said earlier, it was because they were limited in the earlier films that made it so great. That really is what it was. And that kind of thing, come to think about it, with a good script, interesting characters, that can be done again. Don't worry about all the wide open CGI, detailed blah blah blah. That's not what we're after emotionally as people. It really isn't. And that's why so many people, including myself, love the original movie so much. Because when they were limited, that group of artists, to telling this particular story in the way that they did in the late 70s and early to mid 80s with episode 4, 5, and 6, it forced them to focus in on the characters. And so that's what's got to be done. That's the key, as I see it, for whatever my opinion is worth. Probably not much. Episode 2. I actually like a good bit of episode 2. Yes, it is boring and drawn out, but they finally have the almost of age Anakin in there. And although the worst parts of the movie to me are the love, whatever, again, horrible dialogue. You don't really see anybody falling in love in this movie, and I'll just stop right there as far as what I need to say about Anakin and Padme. What she was wearing in that scene is like, you look like a street person. Anyway, all the stuff Obi-Wan is going through with his investigation, it's only interrupted by a few good scenes. His fight with Jango, Boba Fett's dad, as it were, his clone dad. Or he's the clone, rather. How they're interesting little tidbits along the way, but how it is kind of slow until the ending of the film, when you get to that place where they had so much of the clone army, and there was Dooku, this person you haven't seen until now, and it just was really, really, it finally got good toward the end. And then there was a bit of action there, which seemed to just go on and on through the third film, with the Clone War having started. And so in the third film, you see all of a sudden a situational thing where Senator Palpatine, or I'm sorry, by then he was Chancellor, wasn't he? Supreme Chancellor, something like that. He's been kidnapped, and so it's a rescue mission. Pretty neat way to change things up, I thought. A nice little very different, really, to begin with a situation like that. When in, say, Empire Strikes Back, you didn't get to them being attacked and things being mixed up and characters being separated until like 45 minutes into the movie. But I thought that was neat. The space battle was neat. Still like the Battle of Endor and Return of the Jedi much better. But anyway, very neat, very neat. Palpatine is revealed for who he is. You see all this stuff with Anakin. The stuff that's kind of there but not. I actually like the little speech about when Palpatine saying the way he played on his emotions and stuff and got into his mind. That actually was an interesting part of the film that I really liked. They asked you to spy on me, didn't they? And how he seems like he's a victim and all this. It was just, that I thought was really good. Even if Hayden Christensen's acting, I thought it just wasn't quite. It was almost there. It was closer than ever. Closer than ever. But how it's really Palpatine's, the actor who played, I think it's Ian McKellen? No, that's not right. No. Ian McPherson? No. Ian something, I think. I should have been looking at IMDb for this, but I'm just out here under the stars rambling. Hope nobody sees me. They'll think I'm mentally disturbed. Maybe I am. Anyway, I really liked him in those parts. Right up until his... really, I liked him in all of the third film, I guess. Not so much in the first and second films. Yeah, just the third film, basically. As far as what he had to do and say, what he did in the third film, I really liked everything that he did, as far as becoming the Emperor and all. Did he save the film? I wouldn't say that. It's just, it sounds so interesting when they make these little references, these allusions to the Clone War in Episode 4. You fought in the Clone Wars? Yes. I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father. And yet when they depict it, it's a clone army versus a droid army. Who gives a care? What's going on? It's clones versus robots. It's like... interesting for sure. Must be the first time that's ever been done. Very neat. But it's like, as far as the emotional impact that I've been talking about, what's on the line... don't you know, David, it's the future of the galaxy that's on the line. Okay. Gotcha. But yeah, the whole thing, even the ending fight, it just seemed like they were ending on just a whirl, just a blur of lightsaber flashes on the end. You do see something kind of dark and brutal in the way Anakin... Obi-Wan says, "Don't try it. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground." It's like, you underestimate my power. Don't try it. And then when he strikes him and he's legless and armless, and then he gets set on fire, and so you see why he has to have the full body suit so he can breathe and everything else. You got your explanation, and the closest thing to... it was almost horrific, though. It seemed like so much at once, trying to make catch-up, basically. If that's the best way to say it, I don't know. But just... it seemed almost like a horror film instead of a drama, which really, when I watched the end of Return of the Jedi, you were right. You were right about me. How that's not really a horror movie. You saw... and it's one of the things that really, it's reading between the lines, the horror of being Darth Vader, when in Episode 6, he baits him talking about Leia and how she'll join the dark side. Like, no! And for the first time ever, you see Luke going on the offensive, and it's Vader who's defending from the lightsaber strikes, and Luke's just offensive, until he finally breaks him down by that railing, and he's like just trying to break him down, hitting him over and over again until he finally knocks his arm loose and then cuts his arm off. To see the Emperor with his evil laugh, and the way the expression on Mark Hamill's face as he looks down at Vader's arm, and you're expecting, is this going to be like a cauterized wound or something, like when uh, Obi-Wan had to deal with the thugs in the bar, the cantina scene in the first film? No, it's just naked wires and fried circuits. It's like you see for the first time, because up until that point, you don't know that Vader, when you watch the original trilogy, as I did, being born when I was born and seeing those movies in the order that I've seen them, because 4, 5, 6 was made first, and then 1, 2, 3, you don't know why Vader is in this suit. It's not fully explained to you from the films, despite Obi-Wan's talk about how he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. He's talking about his conscience, really, not his body. And to see that expression, that great acting by Mark Hamill, looking down at Vader's arm, when you realize Darth Vader's already had his arm cut off once before, and so has Luke. Vader cut it off. The horror of it, the horror of being Darth Vader, how he really is. What is he? You know, he's evil, and yet he's a man, and yet he's supposed to be all evil, and it's just so many thoughts come across the mind as the Emperor closes in on Luke, saying, "Now fulfill your destiny and take your father's place at my side." Never. The great acting by Mark Hamill is like, it blows the first trilogy out of the water, and the prequel trilogy out of the water, and the prequel trilogy came later. They tried so hard in episode 3, and yet that ending fight, it just kind of ended. Palpatine came along with his fried up self, his melted face and everything, picked Vader up, which he had called him Vader by then, put him in a suit to help him keep him alive and well, called him Vader after Anakin cut off Samuel L. Jackson, Mace Windu's arm, and everybody in the world's going, "Yeah, way to go, Anakin. Kill off the only black guy in the cast. Way to go. Very nice, Anakin." And then the classic seen it 100 times thing with, "What have I done?" After the Emperor had just been playing with them all. Power! Unlimited power! It was great, and yet it really is the behavior of the characters. I'm not going to say it's dumb. No, Prometheus, Fifield getting lost after he mapped out the place, and the idiot scientist getting his arm broken by the alien snake, that is dumb. I'm not going to call that scene in episode 3 dumb, because that was basically the type and the antitype of what came later, isn't it? How he's got someone's life in his hand, and it's the same guy as the Emperor, going to kill his son, and he saves his son when earlier in life he had tried to save Palpatine, and he had actually killed someone who didn't deserve to be killed, or gotten him killed. He didn't kill Mace Windu, the Emperor killed him, but he zapped off his hand when Mace was about to strike down the evil Palpatine. And so yeah, it's hit and miss with me. I don't hate the prequel trilogy. It's hit and miss. There's some things I like, and some things I'm like, I agree with most people about the very well thought out and valid complaints people have about the lack of this, the overemphasis on that, and blah blah blah. But it's just, my overall beef with it is that they had lost that spark that those movie makers had when they were making the first movies, and that's really all in a nutshell. Yoda going from CGI to Muppet to CGI to Muppet, it's like, I really like the original trilogy, Noah, best of all too. And I'll just go ahead and just save any further comment about that, and just say that's one more thing where I'll just stick with the original trilogy. So many characters. Han, how one of a kind he was. Lando Calrissian, how good Billy D. Williams was in that film, and just in episode 5 and 6. And the way even some of the characters spinning off in stories later told, Dash Rendar, Prince Caesar in the Shadows of the Empire story, how even the stories most closely related to that particular timeline. With the closer to the originals anything got, it's like the more I like it. When all this stuff now that they have about Clone Wars and all the spin-offs, some of it's good. I think I got a GameCube game of the Clone Wars, Star Wars Clone Wars. Pretty fun, but just can't get into it. Not the same way as the original trilogy, which I really do need to break down and watch again for old time's sake sometime. Anyway, I don't know of anything else I can talk about. Maybe I'll just save any further complaint for the video that I'd like to make when I give a little talk on the dark imagery in movies. Unnecessary, bad for people, whatever I have to say about it whenever I finally do that. And yeah, that'll be mostly a rant too. But maybe just another thought about the special effects before I close this video. I really like the old stuff just so much better. I do. Because it looked real, the practical stuff. It just looked real to me. Some things about the space battle in the third film, episode 3 that is, it's like it's there, it looks good, and yet it doesn't really look real. And not that the explosions that take place in like an outer space battle would look that way anyway. I'm just saying things like the Battle of Hoth. That stuff really did. The Imperial Walkers, and even the AT-STs and on the moon, Endor, and Return of the Jedi. The stuff just looked good to me. But the more CGI, it all just starts to seem like kind of a blur to me. Maybe not so much of a blur as Man of Steel special effects was. That's almost a complete blur. But yeah, I am someone who, if you can go practical, maybe mix it up, have CGI and practical, but with the emphasis on the most practical, then that's the stuff I like the best, just me personally. Not sure what else I can talk about. I think I'm all talked out, getting tired of talking, but I don't want to miss anything. Yeah, I've covered everything. It was a different time, I guess, with a different aim from when they made the original trilogy to when they made the prequels. And unfortunately, it's just such a degree of extreme in the differences to me that it causes it really not to match up. Like they really do seem. I mean, it says Star Wars, and you got the da 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 at the beginning of the films, but it's like it still seems like a completely different world, just with like a Twilight Zone episode in the first film, with nothing really happening, just some people mouthing some things. But then in the original trilogy, how it's like you were there and you loved it. Anyway, that's all I can say. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me, especially if you've listened all the way to the end. I do appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next video. Take care.